Welcome back to the Illuminated Path. This is episode 44. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about external validation, which is kind of stemming from our last episode on confidence. So, highly recommend checking out that episode too. And now we're diving a little more into external validation. And we are outside on our porch again. So, if you hear the wind, the birds, the bugs, whatever, this lovely nature vibe.
Very on brand.
Yeah, true. That is
Yeah.
why.
So, first of all, what is external validation?
External validation is when you are really seeking for the praise, the compliments, the validation,
Yeah.
like the people agreeing with you on things from everywhere outside of yourself. It's looking for those answers outside of yourself and not being able to validate yourself internally, like just fully trusting in yourself. You're kind of putting some of that trust outside of yourself.
Yeah. And I think it also really, ties back in with our last episode on confidence, finding that within yourself, and also just kind of keeping in mind, right, like who you're talking to and why. And I think a big conversation here is social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've seen that time and time again from either people our age or just other business owners, entrepreneurs, um, or quote unquote the Instagram entrepreneurs who like just say they're an entrepreneur to look like one. But, um, a lot of people will do this and it really can set you up for what's the term? An expectation hangover.
Mm-hmm.
Because you share something with the expectation that someone's going to validate you. Someone is going to tell you that's a great idea or they're so proud of you. And if you don't get that, you get really disappointed
Yeah.
and you can have that expectation hangover.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference in the energy between sharing something on social media, like just wanting to share photos of your life, things you're enjoying, like your family, your friends, whatever, and just doing it to do it for yourself
Yeah.
because you want the memory and you are just happy to share it versus sharing it and then checking how many people liked it. Do I
Yeah.
have any comments? How many views did it get? And it is a mind game, and it's something that I've definitely had to deal with as, an entrepreneur because it's such a game sometimes, especially when like you're trying to promote something in your business and it's
Mm,
like I want to make, I want to reach people because I want to help people.
yeah.
And then I'm looking and I'm like, wow, cool Instagram, the algorithm showed this to nobody.
Yeah.
And then you start to get down on yourself. That's something so completely out of your control. And also there's a level of like the external validation, like you feel like crap because you shared it for the purpose of having the outside, input from other
Yeah.
people versus just doing it from your heart and doing it because you wanted to and you don't care about, the result of it.
Right.
It's putting a lot into the result of the action and wanting, to receive something for what you did rather than just doing it for yourself.
Yeah. And there's a lot of overlap here, right? From like looking for that next best product, the next best thing that you need for this, right? And you've got a goal, you're looking for that person to validate you. You've got that product to level up your health, that next step, and it's constantly looking for something outside of you.
Yeah.
And the big thing from higher consciousness and holistic living is it's within you.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen doctors run trials where people used their mind to heal things. So it's really about reframing this idea that you need to continue looking outside of you for everything.
Yeah, what I really want to, drive home today is we need to work more on our own internal validation.
Yeah.
Of course, like you're going to always seek some sort of external validation from like your partner, like that person that is closest to you. But
Mm,
it's important that you give it to yourself first and feel good about whatever it is first. Celebrate yourself first and then share it, and sharing it with the people who are going to also just like celebrate you versus sharing it with people who are going to push against all of that, internal validation
Yeah.
that you just gave yourself and then make you feel badly again.
So, what is the role here of, our childhood and living at a young age, learning to be externally validated?
I mean, it all stems from childhood, and I've seen a lot on it today of people trying to teach their children how to internally validate themselves because as children, that's all they want. They want the support, they want the love from those around them, their parents, their teachers, because they are, as children, like you rely on others and that is all you know.
Right.
And it is the caretaker, the teachers, whoever's job to care for these children. But part of that is teaching these children how to be proud of themselves. If, a child comes up to you and says, "Do you like my painting?" If you just answer right away and give them the external validation they're seeking, then that's what they know. That's what they're going to learn. They're going to learn that they showed something to someone and they were waiting to hear how they felt about it to then feel about it in their own way.
Right. Like hearing that positive feedback is permission to now feel good or confident about it.
Yeah. So I've been seeing a lot of people now talking about teaching kids because this is, again, like the important time to instill like the beliefs and the thoughts and the habits in children is that young age. Instead of answering right away, saying, "How do you feel about it? What do you think about it?"
Mm,
And really getting them to start to develop that sense of trust in themselves right from the start. And then it's okay to also come be like, "Yeah, I agree."
yeah.
But it's so huge. I
Yeah.
didn't have that as a kid, I
No.
definitely did the typical, like, "How is this?" And then you received the external validation and it felt great. But as an adult, you don't know how to do it for yourself. You have to
Right.
now teach yourself, which is a lot harder to teach yourself as an adult versus growing up that way.
Yeah. And I think there's a really big lesson here in terms of, where you kind of live energetically. Because with music, right, it was a far fetched goal. I had no musical background, I didn't know anything about music. I just knew I loved it. And so for me to be like, I'm going to make music and that's what I'm going to do with my life, it's it's ridiculous, right? So if I were to tell people this, they would be like, you don't know what you're doing, right? And so what happens is people get caught in these loops of, imagine if I did listen to people and thought it was ridiculous, but I knew in my heart and soul it's what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
But I only knew how to externally validate and I listened to other people's fears and I didn't live my truth. And
Yeah.
that's what happens is people get caught in these loops of like, oh, I really want to do this, but people don't think it's realistic.
Yeah.
I wasn't validated in it.
Yeah. And it's like you already have your own limiting beliefs. And then if you're looking for external validation and you don't get the validation you're looking for, it's literally just making more limiting beliefs. Like, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
I already was struggling to believe it. And now someone else already like told me, yeah, they don't believe it. So that just increases the limiting belief and it lowers the confidence
Yep.
completely."
And then you're dealing with imposter syndrome again. And, so it really can be. And I think that's an important point there as well. If you have limiting beliefs, you can't look to other people to solve them for you,
Mm-mm.
Because I think that's something too, right? Like if I was hesitant about music and then I was going to someone else to get that validation because I couldn't do it myself, whereas what I should have been doing was, how do I work through this limiting belief myself?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that like even going back to like what you were saying about social media and everything, if you're struggling and you go and post online to look for the validation, that doesn't resolve it for yourself.
Right.
If you get the 100 freaking likes and the comments and all the things, internally, there's still something for you to work on because you need to be confident in yourself, have trust in yourself. Like,
Mm,
you can't just pull that from other people because it's about your own thoughts and your own feelings.
yeah. There's actually been research on that, and pretty much I believe that the finding was that every like or comment or share we get is like a small hit of dopamine, and it's addictive, and that's what we're putting in our kids' hands. So I think it's incredibly harmful in some senses when you start factoring in how social media affects how people set goals, how they grow a business, how they develop friendships. There's a lot of things where, yes, it can be great and connect people together. It can also really affect people's mental state. And I think people know that, but I don't think they understand the extent of like what it's doing, how much it's impacting,
Mhm.
because people get really complacent and then it's easy to just go scroll and then feel worse about yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how do we actually then start internally validating?
I think first and foremost, it's like you need to know who you are, what feels good to you, what makes you trust yourself, what makes you believe in yourself, what you want out of
Mm,
life because nobody else can tell you what you want and what milestones and things are going to feel good that you should celebrate. You
yeah,
have to do that for yourself. Like, you have to celebrate every small victory that you have in life, and you have to do that again for yourself. So, first, that comes from just even knowing yourself.
right. Like celebrating the journey of getting there and working to validate yourself. I think we've seen that time and time again of, people who said, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I get this. I'll be happy
Yes.
when I get that promotion. I'll be happy when I get the new job, the new house, the new car. And they always say the same thing. I never reached that point of happiness. I just set a new goal.
Right.
And if you don't learn to be grateful and present along the way on the journey, you're never going to enjoy it. You're going to blink and your life's gone.
Yeah. All of those things, too, that you just mentioned are all like external things, right?
Absolutely.
And,
And that's the big inspiration or motivation for people getting them.
right.
I want the Mercedes because it's a status symbol and people will externally validate me. They'll say nice car. They'll say, "Oh, that's a really sweet ride, whatever." You got the job, or oh, what a beautiful house.
Yeah.
You are externally seeking those things, and that's the matrix. I mean, that's where people are caught, and that's the life that they live. And I think that's why you and I have done a really good job of intentionally not living in waste. If we don't use something, we donate it, we throw it out, we, whatever. But it's that materialistic capitalist cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not only about like seeking actual words of praise, but it's like physical things of, oh, look at me, and wanting praise for that or wanting compliments for that or whatever. But you just miss out on life
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
And
Because you're
you,
living for other people.
I was just going to say, you're building a life that's not for yourself. So
Yeah.
you don't know yourself. You don't really know your true desires and your true wants and what makes you feel good and how on a daily basis, you're meeting your needs and learning and growing.
Yeah.
And all of those things are only things that you can recognize and celebrate. Nobody's going to like come pat you on the back because you worked out for a week straight and that was a big goal
Yeah.
of yours or whatever. Like, these are things you have to do for yourself, know what you want, and then celebrate every small victory because you're the only one who can validate yourself.
Yeah. And I think too, because we've seen this time and time again of like someone who's struggling and then goes on social media and tries to act like everything's all fine and dandy. But factoring that in, right? And like considering what's your motivation. Whereas I think a lot of people who seek external validation, they want something from other people versus internal validation is more what you and I do, where we say, okay, but how do we feel? Are we there? Are we happy?
Yeah.
Like, would we love a bigger house? Sure. But we're very happy and grateful for the house that we have. We're happy to have a home for our dogs, the yard, and we take time to be grateful for where we at in the present moment
Mm.
instead of looking forward. And I think a big conversation there is if you're focusing on scarcity or lack, that's what you're always going to have.
Yeah.
And if you're focusing on the present and all that you do have, you'll find yourself in gratitude and able to create more. And that's a big conversation, from that I've read in a lot of the money books is having money doesn't make you suddenly start donating because you haven't developed that skill at all. You have to donate with where you're at. You have to give money
Mm,
in the capacity that you're able. If it's $5, if it's $1, if it's 25 cents, it's about developing that skill.
mm.
Next time you go to a coffee shop, leave them a couple bucks for a tip. You don't have to do it every time,
Yeah.
but start flexing that muscle. And I'm kind of on a sidebar tangent, but I think that's important in terms of considering what you have with where you're at and how it feels for you versus looking to other people to say that you're doing well or you've got a good job or you've got the nice house.
Yeah. Well, it's all about practicing the gratitude. So
Mm.
having the gratitude for yourself, having the gratitude for the small accomplishments and celebrating all of those along the way and doing it like for you and for yourself, it makes you not need the external validation as much. So
Yeah.
it's that in itself is something to practice.
Right. And there's also the aspect of kindness, right? And we did the episode on kindness. I think that's really important. And if you have watched that episode or listened to it, the discussion was being kinder to yourself. And I think in the conversation of external validation, you find yourself with a limiting belief or imposter syndrome or whatever it is, and you don't possess the kindness or the confidence to validate yourself.
Mhm.
And so you look to other people.
Yeah.
And the problem there is you don't know how kind other people are, truly. You don't know if they're going to lead with fear in whatever it is that you're trying to validate.
Yeah.
So kindness, gratitude, and compassion for yourself are incredibly important topics when we talk about internally validating and
Yeah.
not needing other people for that.
And if you're someone who is like super kind to other people, like if a friend comes to you for that external validation and you are someone who's like gonna hype them up,
Yeah.
gonna celebrate with them, like do that for yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's the big conversation, right? Is like we always find ourselves treating ourselves the worst, not, as kind to our family members or the people who are close to us. So it's kind of keeping that frame of reference, right? Of like you're speaking to their inner child, you're speaking to your inner child, you're, hyping up your best friend. And so approach your internal validation in a similar manner.
Yeah.
Speak to yourself and your inner child with that kindness, with that compassion.
Yeah. Just like we say to surround yourself with supportive people. Be supportive
Yeah,
yourself to yourself for yourself.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
No, I think that's it.
I think that was great. I really like it out here.
There are a lot of birds chirping and making noises. I hear
Yeah,
one specifically very loud, so
it's fine.
hope you guys enjoy, know what the birds are saying and
Well, the birds, what's the science here? The birds only squeak when there's no predators around, so it's
oh
calming
yeah.
to our nervous system.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's so lovely out.
Very on brand, sort of meditative thing going on here. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.